ミスター・グレッグ・メリル。
Thank you, and hello, and good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here with you all. I think time is our greatest asset, and so each of us get to decide where we spend our time. And so I'm grateful to spend some of my time with you, and I'm also grateful for you all being here and allowing me to join. So thank you for that. We're going to talk about retail and the future of retail and commerce. It's a chaotic environment, I think, as you all know. I don't need to tell you that. But with my time for you today, I will be successful if I can walk away and give you three things. The first is to offer some new perspective and challenging some conventional wisdom in the global retail space. Things that we think we know or that has been true for a long time has changed. So that's number one. Number two, I want to share some fun and interesting stories of my time and my career and journey that has gone in many different directions. And the third is to provide you with some tactical things, some work that you can take back to your job and to your company that should hopefully help you. And I don't like to speak about theory, I like to speak about application. And each of us, when we go back to our day job, the world is complex. Your job is complex. We have businesses to run. And so again, the third thing is my hope is that you will walk away with some tactics that will allow you to do your job better. So let's dive in. To start with, who am I? Early on, I was in the entrepreneurial field. I had launched and built three different companies. One of them was an innovation partner to Nike, which brought me into Nike. And I had almost 10-year career at Nike, and I stepped away last year specifically to focus on building my strategic advisory and board service. And Nike's a big company, it's a global company, and does some things really, really well, and has room to grow in others, like all companies. And early on in my time at Nike, as we were investing in companies, I would sit on the board of companies. And so for me, as an entrepreneur working inside a large corporation that in many ways is not so entrepreneurial, I was able to get both needs met of being an entrepreneur inside a large corporation. Another hat that I wear or role that I serve now is on the NRF, the Innovation Advisory Council. So NRF is National Retail Federation, has predominantly been a US-based organization. It's a trade association and a lobbying organization that looks after the state of retail. And again, predominantly has been US focused, and now they've started to grow. Last year was the first APAC show in Singapore, and there will be one in September coming up in Paris for Europe. So NRF is trying to expand, their focus, and my work there on the Innovation Advisory Council is essentially industry experts and venture capitalists that are sitting at the cutting edge of the future of retail globally. What technology is coming? We're going to talk about AI a little bit, but where things are going so that we can, as an industry, stay ahead of them and advocate for our unique needs. The other thing I'll mention is while I've lived most of my life in the US, and so that has brought me some learnings, I grew up in Spain, and I've had the great fortune of traveling all over the world for work. So what I love is coming to new places, and I've spent a good amount of time in Tokyo, and I love Japan. I was telling the team that this is like top three places where, I told my wife, get ready, someday I'm going to tell you we are moving to Japan because I love it so much here. But what I love about going to these new places and meeting new folks is that the regional differences and the things that folks do really well. In Southeast Asia, if you look at live streaming and social commerce, they're doing it. They're already there. And so if you're in e-commerce, that's something to pay attention to if you're not. Europe, when it comes to data privacy and regulations and who's kind of advocating for the consumer the greatest, it's Europe. And then the rest of the world tends to fall in line with that. And in the US, when I look at the US, more than just having a captive consumer that has their wallet out and are ready to pay for things, the supply chain and speed. And we're going to talk a little bit about Amazon as well and what they have done really well when it comes to serving the consumer at the speed of today, which is very fast. Okay, so the last thing I'll mention, sorry I forgot, is the Medici effect is this concept, and there's a book about it, that the greatest disruption and innovation comes at the intersection of ideas and people. And that's another reason why I love coming to events like this, because my life and my career has been defined by the intersectionality of companies big and small, public and private, all sorts of industries, luxury fashion, sustainability, robotics, automation, manufacturing, brands and retail. And some of the greatest lessons and the most disruptive lessons that I've learned have come from the most unexpected places. Most companies want to grow. In fact, I'll venture to say all companies want to grow or transform. And beautiful, let's do that. But to get bigger, we must first get better. And what does that mean? Getting better is building a solid foundation upon which then you can grow. And there's this concept that I have called the beautiful basics, which there's 5 or 6 things that if any company does incredibly well, consistently, with discipline over time, you will grow. It's almost a non-negotiable. And so there's a few of these sprinkled in here that I'll talk about that might sound very basic, but I think are very important reminders as we go about our job and our lives. And so I'm going to anchor us on sort of the foundation before then we start talking about the topic of the day, which is building more loyalty through community, and breaking that apart and sharing with you where I think that's going. So the first beautiful basic is to have a business strategy. And bear with me, what do I think the best looks like? A clear, concise, and compelling strategy that every single employee in your company can articulate, can say, and everybody says the same thing. And it might sound silly, but there are so many companies that I deal with, starting with the CEO, and the first question, what's your business strategy? I don't want to hear about technology, and I don't want to hear about AI, because those are tools to execute on your strategy. But if you don't have a business strategy that articulates what you're doing and where you're going, then stop there. That's table stakes. You got to figure that out. Every employee must be able to articulate what that is. It'll change over time, and that's okay, but make sure that you're starting there. Part of a solid foundation. Now, the next place is this perfect storm of disruption that I see the global retail industry is going through, and I'll sort of take you through each one of these. But we've known for years brand loyalty is eroding. With the rise of technology and apps and social media, it's becoming more and more difficult every day for brands and retailers to stand out from the noise, to be seen. And customers have endless choice. So they don't need to come to you anymore. They can go to some no-name brand or some early brand that pops up that's just e-commerce, direct-to-consumer, that with AI tools now, any one of you can go out and in a couple days have a new company. and have a website and have an e-commerce platform and everything. And so the barriers to entry have dropped, brand loyalty continues to erode, and it becomes more and more difficult to stand out from the noise. On top of that, there's pricing sensitivity, and that's sort of always the case, right? But I feel, and what I see now is that with tariffs kind of leading the pack, pricing sensitivity has continued to increase. We haven't even talked about geopolitics and how that impacts fuel prices and the cost of moving goods around the world, which increases price, decreases margin, and drives consumers to sort of lower cost options. And the last one that I'll mention is factories going direct to consumer. This one is incredible. If you have not looked up Chinese manufacturers take on TikTok, you should take the time to go and look at it because it's absolutely fascinating. Coming from an old school kind of brand and retail guy that has also spent a tremendous amount of time in the behind the scenes operation of manufacturing and supply chain and from your source base. I've worked in factories for many years. I've made my own shoes by hand. So I understand that side of the business very well. And most of the consumer-facing kind of brands and retailers don't necessarily look into that side of the business as much as they will need to. Tariffs are causing everybody to have to become smarter in this area. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. But so with tariffs and Chinese manufacturers being harmed in this case, we would see global brands that would have to cancel orders that were already being made in China, and these Chinese factories had these all of these items that they had paid for material and labor to produce, but that their customer was no longer willing to buy them. And so what did they do? They got on TikTok and they said, "Hey, U.S. consumer, buy direct from me, and guess what? I'll show you how we make it. See this Hermes handbag, which you're going to pay $8,000 from Hermes? We'll give it to you for a tenth of that. $800, it's yours. We'll ship it direct to you. It gets there quickly, and maybe we'll take off the logo, or maybe not, right? Because we also saw China had relaxed some of their regulations around copyright infringement. So I don't mean to take us down that avenue, but the idea is how do we think differently, become resourceful when the rules change, and the rules have changed. So that's part of this perfect storm of disruption that is sort of driving a lot of this changes. The third thing that I'll mention is that not only the industry, but your business, our business, has become decentralized. And what do I mean by that? Traditionally, when you would decide to design and develop a new product, whatever it is you might sell, and bring that to market, it was your internal employee base that did it. You would have designers and developers that would look at consumer data and sales data and say, we think we're going to make this new product over here, so you go through the steps and you design and develop it. Well, now, again, with the advent of AI and other tools and technology, anybody can come up with ideas and bring them to market. And so this decentralization is where brands now and retailers need to balance between protecting their intellectual property and allowing, or even more so, inviting in the general public and their consumers to say, you come in and be part of our next product innovation or next product design. So this is where this decentralization is driving a lot of these changes. And I know a lot of brands are resisting it, and it's very easy to see why, but I don't think that going forward, brands and retailers will have the choice to opt out of this. Okay, so I wanted to start sort of at the foundation, at the intersection of a lot of these forces that are driving a lot of the chaos that we're sort of feeling in the industry. And let's pop into the second beautiful basic, which is data. Data as a fuel for your business. And there are a few things to mention here. You measure what matters, and that you're looking at data that is strategically important to your business to drive whatever your goals are, which I'm guessing your goal is we want to drive greater sales, we want to improve our margin, we want to have a more agile supply chain and business so that we can respond to shifting consumer demands quicker. Beautiful. If any of those resonated, you're in the right room and you're in good company, because that's what it is that we're trying to do. And so ultimately, you want to be able to make better, faster, and smarter business decisions, and data is your fuel to do that. Now, there's a few sort of dichotomies here that we need to balance in our business. And part of it, and if I understand correctly, a lot of folks in here are driving digital business, so e-commerce. If that's the case, or if that's you, you already have a tremendous amount of data, probably more than you need or more than you know what to do with. Because consumers will come onto your site, you know how long they're spending on pages, you know what they're clicking on, you know the conversion rate, you know everything they're doing from start to finish. But if you also have a physical retail environment, you don't have all that data. And that's where it's a bit like a desert, where you're starved for that data, or you're not getting as much data as you need to run and grow your physical retail business, or even better yet, to connect the data between your physical and digital business. Now, I don't know that anybody's doing this yet. If you've heard of it, see me after. I'd love to talk to you. But let's say I walk into a retail store, and let's say it's a Nike, and I'm on the Nike app, and I'm a loyal member, and I've given them permission to use my facial scan, biometrics. So I walk into the store, and immediately they know me, and somebody can come and serve me, and they know what I've shopped online, and then they know that I love the new Pegasus, but I want them in the color red, not the color black. And online, they didn't have my color, but then I come in store, and somebody can then give me a more personalized shopping experience. That's an example where you can connect digital and physical shopping experiences and the data. Now, it's not relevant, or it's important to have more than just data, but what are the analytics? What are the insights? What does it mean? And then how do you apply that? How do you take those insights and then again apply it to make better, faster, smarter business decisions, which might mean we need to allocate inventory into a different city or state or region or country. Or we need to make different product because we're overproducing in the wrong items, and we're not producing enough of the items that people want. So those are a couple of the dichotomies around the importance of data and where it should be used. And then the last thing I'll mention is around consumer data privacy, which is a hot topic. Any country I go to, people want to talk about it. What data you can have access to and what you should use versus what you should not use. And there was a really interesting example here where Target, the big retailer in the US, was able to know that a woman was pregnant before she did. And they started recommending baby diapers and wipes and things like that because through their algorithm, and they went back and said, we need to change this. This is very creepy. The idea is, how do you use data in the right way but not be creepy about it? And they started recommending products to this woman. And they found out, or they realized afterwards, a byproduct or a consequence of their algorithm, that based on when women were early in their pregnancy, they started searching for different types of products. And so that is how that example kind of came to life. And everybody agreed, even Target, like, that is way too creepy. So in that case, they needed to change the data they were looking at and what the algorithm told them to do, in this case, market these baby products to this woman. So what data you do have and what you do use versus what you should use is maybe an ethical or more moral kind of decision outside of what's legal and what is allowed based on, the laws of the country that you're in. Okay, before I move off this slide, I'll share with you sort of the three questions that, and the way that I wrote these questions, you'll see on a couple more slides, they're here, is when you go back to your job and pull your leadership together and say, I'm going to throw questions on the table, and we're not going to leave until we have a good answer to these. And maybe you already do. And if you do, beautiful. If not, this is your chance to do it. So the first question is, what data do we currently collect from our customers? And some of the really large companies that I work with, you go up and you ask the CEO, and they have no idea. And that's an area that I think needs to change and needs to be remedied. And actually, along with that, there's this concept of sort of data literacy. Do we understand the different types of data or how we should use it for our business? And I think everybody in your C-suite should have data literacy training. I think we all should. So the second question is our data clean, relevant, and actionable? Can you actually use it to make, with a high confidence factor, decisions about either what product to bring to market, what geography to go into next, whatever business decision that you're making, the data should support that. And which I kind of led into the third question is how are we using data to make better, faster, and smarter decisions? The last example that I want to give here, so you see this, this Nike Tokyo After Dark. You all know this better than I, but part of the insight was that there's a big running community in Tokyo. And Nike's been operating in Tokyo for many decades, and it's a beautiful part of the Nike business. But one of the insights came from folks are working really long days in Tokyo. And so if you're an avid runner, chances are you're running late after work. Chances also are that it's dark out. And so Nike, the local team in Japan, was able to pull some of this data together to look at using Nike has an app called NRC, the Nike Run Club. And you can turn it on when you go for a run, and it tracks your distance and some of your biometrics and whatnot, so you can track your runs. And so Nike came out with an After Dark product line, I don't know if it was officially called that had bright colors and reflective gear, and it wasn't just footwear, it was running vests and hats and whatnot, because they found that there was sort of an unmet safety need. So you could have locally relevant product that solved a runner's need, in this case, higher visibility, because you're running at nighttime in and around Tokyo. So that was a really nice example where the data was looked at and ingested to make a product decision. In this case, again, it was very relevant for Japan and Tokyo specifically. Okay, this is where we get to the meat of what we're going to talk about. The consumer. And what is community? What is loyalty? And how do you drive that in today's day and age? So customers everywhere around the world, again, tell me if you disagree, after please, is personalization and speed. And there's psychology wrapped into each of those. Personalization is know me to serve me. This ties in nicely with data, because what do we know about our consumers, both in a general sense and at the individual level? And the more you know somebody, the better you can serve them, whether that's through product recommendations or, anyway, there's a long list of ways that you serve your consumer, but the more you know about them, the better then you can use that knowledge to serve them better. Speed is the other one where Amazon has absolutely spoiled us. And at least in the US, where they have set the standard for consumer expectation around how long it will take me to receive the things that I want. And my family, we live predominantly in Texas, but we spend a lot of time down in Mexico as well. And Amazon is pretty established down in Mexico, so it's a fairly similar comparison. But When I'll go into shop for anything, I instantly click that Prime Only button. I only want to look at products that can get to me in 2 days or less. And I know that's a very privileged place to be. I'm spoiled. And I think a lot of people want things quickly. They're not willing to wait. So speed is an interesting one. I'll give you one quick example here with staying on the Amazon side. So I lived in Portland, Oregon for many years when I was with Nike working out of the world headquarters there in Beaverton. And about an hour east of Oregon, there's a small town called Troutdale. And you probably never would have heard of it unless maybe you work for Amazon, because it is the busiest distribution center, which Amazon has so many all over the world. It's the busiest distribution center in the world for Amazon. And I went there with took my leadership team, and we went and got a tour. And they were explaining this to us. And I thought, well, that's so strange. Why here in the Pacific Northwest of the US, Troutdale, Oregon, nowhere? And the way that they explained it was through a little packet of pencils. There were 5 pencils. And they said every 3 minutes, globally, Amazon refreshes its inventory allocation. And every 3 minutes, they decide, does product need to be reallocated to different distribution centers so that we can deliver on our customer promise, which in many cases with these pencils, Prime, 2 days or less. In some cases, 2 hours or less delivery. And so that packet of pencils, which was probably $2 or $3, they make zero profit on that. This was, again, just one example. Why? Because every 3 minutes, when that inventory gets refreshed, they actually realize they have to ship pencils over to a different distribution center so that everything is optimally located so that it can reach the customer on time. Which drives me back to Troutdale, the distribution center there. It's a pass-through hub. The pencils arrive, and then they leave, and they go somewhere else. So anyway, it was an interesting example that stuck with me because in this case, Amazon prioritized speed over profitability, which is maybe you can only do that at the scale of a business like Amazon, but that was their consumer promise. That's what they prioritized, and that's what they were able to do. What does the solution look like? Unified commerce. And I think there are some tech companies, some tech folks in here, which I love tech, and I've worked in tech a fair amount. I look at unified commerce as, from a consumer perspective, do I see any seams between the transactions? So when I start searching for a product, whether I'm online or in the store, to when I actually buy it, do I feel any seams or any integration points? Whether you're at point of sale checkout or anywhere along the journey, do I see or feel the technology? And I believe the solution is that the customer should not see the technology. They should not see the seams, and it should feel like one single brand experience from start to finish. I think that's an important consideration for whatever it is that you develop and deploy. And contextual commerce goes back to personalization, know me to serve me. We try so hard to know our customers when they're on our platforms, when they're in our stores, when they're on our website. We try so hard to know them. But guess what? They spend so much more of their life not on your channels, not on your platforms. What do you know about them when they're somewhere else? When they're on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or any other app? Because the lines between entertainment, commerce, and culture have essentially blurred. So if you're not meeting them where they are, on like a TikTok, you're behind. So that's contextual commerce. Now, we talked a little bit about social commerce. I won't dive into all the numbers here. TikTok Shop, which started, I think it was September 2023 in the US and did like $9 billion in GMV within the first, I think, 9 or 10 months. And the US is not even the largest when it comes to social commerce. I did not pull the numbers for Japan. I should have, but I'm going to go back and do it now. But you all can tell me how big social commerce is here. The other aspect is sort of influencer-led commerce, which is driving. And this is the AI that I like to talk about is authenticity and imagination, not artificial intelligence, which leads me into loyalty and community. Authenticity is a human connection thing, let's call it that. I speak a lot on sports. Sports teams have an unfair advantage over a Nike, an Apple, or a Coca-Cola. Those are corporations that, yes, people work there and they have a logo, but those are companies. Those are not people. Whereas a sports team, or you and I here, we are people, and we want to connect with other people on a very human level. It's very difficult, if maybe not impossible, to do that with a company, with a corporation. And so this is where community comes in. And as brands and retailers, we need to show up in the space of our customers and participate in that community, become a community member versus controlling or owning the community. And this is almost a role shift that must happen. The other thing here to think about is typically we would look at our consumer from a demographic standpoint. You know, age, where they live, gender, income bracket, those things. And we would lump people or group people accordingly. And I think that's gone. We're beyond that. Psychographics, what people do, how they behave. There is this tremendous surge of digital and online communities where people that seemingly have nothing in common are connecting over shared ideas and values and interests. A couple to mention, garage dads. Dads that have a garage and will use that to store tools or to build a gym or different things. And there's this massive, massive community, but brands aren't there. And so as brand and retailers, how do we think about integrating into these communities to become a member? Again, not to control or own the narrative there. So authenticity is the new currency. Imagination, the human imagination, I deeply believe will be the single greatest accelerant or bottleneck to whatever business you're in. Okay, your questions here are, how well do we know our consumers? Can we segment them? And from a psychographic standpoint, do we know who they are on a deeply human level? Again, without being creepy, not too much information or data, just what we need to integrate with them. What do our customers do when they're not with us? Are they on social media? Are they off digital channels? What are they doing and how can we serve them, whatever it is, the business that you do? And then what is our role as brands and retailers in this new sort of community-driven commerce? And this is tough because I'll look at it from a Nike standpoint where Nike, from a sports, fashion, and sort of street culture, was creating communities. And I think the shift now is, how does, in this case, Nike, become a member of that community, an authentic member when they're, yes, still a corporation? Okay. Second to last slide. I'm going to go a little bit quick here. This is a bit outside the scope, but I wanted to share with you a few insights here. So if you're in brand and retail, you sell a product, and that product comes from somewhere. And tariffs have forced all of us to get smarter about where our products are made, the cost of all the different components that go in there. And again, tying a couple of these concepts together, data. I'm not seeing a lot of companies connect their sales data with their supplier data, such that your sales are running low in a store in Tokyo, and so it automatically sends a signal to your factory or your supply chain, which again, in many cases, is contract manufacturing. You don't own it, control or operate it. Some cases, maybe you do, and that's great. You're vertically integrated. So that's an area where the data can connect the two. The questions here, I'll just throw out quickly, and By the way, there's a QR code I'll get to next. If you want to copy the slides, I'm happy to share, and you can kind of look through them in more depth. But how agile and diversified is your source base, where your products are coming from? What are the bottlenecks, and how can you get them out of the way? And then how much influence do you have over that? Okay, I will wrap here. I'm going to be around for the whole event here. Please don't be shy. Come and talk to me. I would love your questions, your ideas, if you agree with anything I said, if you disagree with anything I said, if you have insight or stories that you want to share, please don't be shy. Come and see me. And so if you scan this QR code, I'm on LinkedIn. There's a way to connect with me there. You can give some feedback, and you can also let me know so that I can send the slides along to you. So with that, I thank you very much, and I'm going to invite Ayuko up on stage to help us facilitate the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Greg さん。皆さんありがとうございます。サミット事務局の金山でございます。ここからは会場の皆さんからグレッグさんへの質問を募集したいと思います。ご質問のある方、挙手の方をお願いいたします。スタッフがマイクを持ってまいります。後方の方で手が上がっておりますのでマイクをお願いします。
はい、ありがとうございました。私はマーケティング20年ぐらいやっている西井と申します。で、僕も実は NTT ドコモとかオイシックスっていう日本の大企業で、マーケティングの仕事をしながら自分で会社をやっているそういう人です。
Working for 20 years as a marketer, and she worked for NTT Docomo and Oshix. It is they're selling foods.
はい、で2つ質問があります。
There are two questions.
で1つ目がブランドロイヤリティがすごく下がっているっていうお話をされてたと思うんですけど、世の中で言うと。
The first question is like you talked about the brand loyalty is like degrading.
例えばシューズで言うと今ナイキとかアディダスとかそのビッグブランドが結構下がってきていて無名なブランドがたくさん買われていると思うんですけど、これはファッションの今のただの流れなのか、それとも今後もずっとそういうことが続いているのかっていうのはどういうふうに考えられますか？
For these days, Nike or the Adidas, the big company, it's a little bit degrading, and the new coming up brand is very like upcoming,
yeah.
strong. So how did you think about this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question, and you captured the dynamic exactly. And I wish we could fill the room full of Adidas and Nike executives to talk about this, because what we're talking about is, I think, the future and where things are going. I don't know that brands fully understand this or appreciate it yet. And that is why the big established companies, especially in the athletic footwear space, are declining. Because when you look at Hoka as a shoe company or On Running, they have been much quicker to respond to the shifting consumer trends. And so their designers and developers are working very quickly and bringing new product to market that's more relevant to the consumer's needs. You know, the overall product development cycle is about 92 weeks. That means to come from an idea for a new product, footwear specifically, to it's on the shelves and available to buy. 92 weeks is way too long in the pace that we're in today, where consumers changing almost every week.
めちゃくちゃよくわかりました。ありがとうございます。I understand very much, so thank you. もう一つ、今の話で僕も大企業でマーケティングの仕事をすることが多いときに、今のその問題を解決するにはどういうふうに考えられてますか
？He worked for the big company before as a marketer, and how did you think that how to solve that problem?
About what we just talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that brands need to find out how to be authentic. And what does that mean? What does that look like? I will give you an example. From 2017, there was an NFL football player named Colin Kaepernick that decided that he was going to kneel, at the games. And it was a bit of a political statement. It was a protest about police brutality in the US. And Nike decided to stand by him. And it made some people very angry. Some other people fell deeper in love with Nike. And so it's a risky business decision. Many companies will take the approach, do nothing, say nothing. And I think from a business standpoint, actually, that can be even more risky than taking a position on the wrong side. So that's one small example where, as brands and retailers, we need to take that risk, decide who are we, and how do we express that to the world so that some people will fall in love with us and be loyal, and others may not.
ありがとうございます。よくわかりました。もう一つ質問して大丈夫ですか？時間で大丈夫ですかね、会長的に。はい。私ももともとダイレクトマーケティングを出身にずっとやってきたキャリアになるんですが、で今日のお話本当にその通りだなと思って聞いてる中で、ナイキが、これ記事で見ただけなんですけど、アメリカで D2C にずっと振り切ってたやつを最近また小売店で売るような流れにあるっていうふうな記事を見かけたんですが、その辺はどういうふうに考えられていますか
？He actually worked as a D2C for a long time, and Nike was focusing on the D2C business before, but these days they are like coming back to the real stores. So how did you think about this change?
Yes, it's another good insight. And yes, I'm now seeing that Nike is going back to their wholesale partners to rekindle those relationships that had been built over many decades. And I think there's a balance, right? Of course, on paper, when you look at the financials, D2C, of course, why wouldn't we do that? We own the relationship with the consumer, we have the data, and we get to keep more of the margin. So on paper, it makes sense. But then what happens? You pull out of the wholesale, channel, and that leaves empty shelf space. Who goes in there? Hoka, On, Adidas. So, you kind of relinquished some of that real estate in the physical retail space. It was a very risky move, especially as brand loyalty is decreasing. We come back to that. So, customers are like, I'll buy what's in front of me. And what's this shoe? Oh, On, never heard of it. Okay, I'll buy it. Oh, it looks good, it feels good. So, yes, I think there's a balance between D2C and selling through wholesale partners that people go and buy there. So, you've got to be in both.
とてもよくわかりました。ありがとうございます。
ご質問ありがとうございます。それではまだまだ聞きたいこと、聞き足りないっていう方もいらっしゃると思うんですけれども、こちらでちょっとお時間となりましたので、グレッグさん、誠にありがとうございました。Thank you so much, グレッグさん。
Thank you. Thank you.
グレッグさん、金山さん、ありがとうございました。そしてご質問もありがとうございました。なんとグレッグさん